Try to imagine a morning without coffee, without your phone, without a mirror, without breakfast, without a shower. All you have is cold, darkness, the sound of a monastery bell, and a rope where your clothes were drying overnight. There's no push-button start for your body, just a heavy blanket you don't want to leave, not out of laziness but because of the freezing air. And still, you have to get up, because in the year 1320, no one is waiting for you to wake up like a human being. Coffee? It hasn't even reached Europe. Chocolate? Not yet. Sugar? Only in apothecaries and worth more than gold. Every one of your morning rituals is medieval science fiction, and not the fun kind. Subscribe to our channel if you want to know what life looked like without Google, caffeine, and Wi-Fi. And be sure to comment where you're listening from and what time it is right now. We'd love to know how far across time and space this story travels. You're used to waking as a transition, eyes still closed, but your brain already reaching for TikTok or the coffee button. In the Middle Ages, there was no such state. There, you're either up or being yelled at. Waking wasn't a gentle ritual. It was a cold, damp slap of reality, especially in winter, when homes had no heating, at least not how we understand it. Warmth meant a hearth fire that went out during the night, a blanket, coarse, scratchy wool, maybe lined with animal skin. If you were a peasant, you likely shared it with family or livestock. Your pillow was a sack of straw. Your wake-up call? Not a ringtone, but a rooster's scream, a barking dog, or a shove from someone already on their feet. In a monastery, it was the bell. In town, market clamor, wagon wheels. But the point is, no one waited to see if you felt ready for the day. First move? You don't check your phone. You hunt for your shoes because the floor is stone or dirt and it's wet. Washing water is freezing. There's no mirror. Freshness isn't what you feel. It's what's sucked out of you with every breath. No brushing teeth, no espresso machine. There's a wash basin, if you're lucky, and a hand that's still numb. You don't wake up in your body. You wake up into the necessity of surviving another day. There's no hit of caffeine, sugar, or carbs. No quick energy button. You begin the day metabolically naked. And that's exactly why a modern human wouldn't last even a morning in the Middle Ages. Because waking up itself was a challenge. Your body, your mind, your habits, they'd all betray you. Because the only way to wake up was simply to stand up. No stimulants, no motivational quotes, no 5 more minutes. Breakfast, as we know it, with choices between omelets and granola, coffee to go, or a hot dog on the subway, is a luxury of a hyper-developed world. In the Middle Ages, the idea of breakfast existed, but not as a meal in its own right. It was more of a survival gesture, something you threw into your stomach to avoid collapsing in the fields. What exactly did they eat? It depended on who you were. If you were a peasant, you ate whatever was left from the night before. Black rye bread, dense and sour, garlic or onion, and maybe a bit of salted cheese. Meat? Only for holidays or dying relatives. And you washed it down, not with tea or juice, but with weak beer, because water was often unsafe to drink. Children had the same. No cocoa, no cereal, no kids' menu. In towns, options were slightly broader. Dry pastries, leftover porridge, maybe a hot broth. But again, no sugar. Sugar was an exotic medical substance found in apothecaries, not pantries. It was stored like medicine. Sweetness wasn't dessert. It was something rubbed on a sick child's gums. And coffee? Forget it. Coffee hadn't even arrived in Europe yet. It was just beginning its journey through the Arab world. Tea? Also absent. Instead, there were herbal brews, chamomile, sage, and if you were lucky, fresh, warm milk. Now, imagine yourself in the morning. No sugar, no caffeine, no energy in a cup or capsule. You're a medieval person with a 21st century body. Your system is screaming, "Where's my latte?" And the answer is, latte is a fantasy. We don't even always have spoons. And this is the moment you realize a modern person wouldn't make it to lunch. Because even the idea of food as pleasure hasn't been invented yet. Food is function, minimum for survival. No one asks, "Is it tasty?" They ask, "Did you have anything today?" Imagine waking up, standing up, chewing a handful of dry bread, and heading off to chop wood or milk a cow. In the Middle Ages, energy came from physics, not coffee. Let's take a quick European tour. Italy, northern regions 15th to 16th C. A small grain porridge or bread with linseed oil was a typical frustaccio breakfast. Sometimes a splash of milk or yesterday's leftovers. No sugar, no caffeine. People went to the fields on a cold stomach and colder feet. Modern humans, expecting a signal in a cup, would barely last to sunrise. Germany, peasants, 12th to 14th C. German villages typically had 2 meals a day. The morning was minimal, rye bread with cheese or smoked fish, maybe some ale or herbal tea. That was it. No coffee, no juice, just subsistence. A 21st century body trained on fast breakfast energy would begin to panic by 9 a.m. England, rural households 13th C, rye bread, garlic, possibly an egg, and weak ale. Garlic was even used for heat in the stomach. No tea, no coffee. What we call latte was literary fantasy. France, peasants 14th C, bread was the cornerstone. Urban bakers kept towns supplied, with daily consumption averaging 1.5 kilo per person. But morning meals were hardly meals, just dry crusts and maybe a gulp of beer or well water. Across Europe, there was one theme, 2 or 3 ingredients, no stimulation, and 10 to 14 hours of physical labor ahead. No cafes, no coffee breaks, no energy routines. A modern person, thrown into that morning, would break, physically, chemically, emotionally. The coffee machine may seem like a harmless modern luxury, but it's our protector. It signals that life today is built not for harvesting barley, but for calendars, conversations, and Wi-Fi. Without a coffee break, the modern human is like an engine running dry. In the Middle Ages, there were no breaks, only the day, and it was for work. England, 13th to 14th C. Peasants worked from sunrise to sunset, with perhaps a brief nuncheon around midday. Some dried bread and ale. Taking extra pauses? Risky. A landlord might scold you or fire you. Leisure was for the privileged. Byzantine Empire, 10th, 11th C. Bakers were up early. The city's rhythm ran on their bread. If you stopped too long to sip tea or catch your breath, you missed your customers. No coffee house waiting, just a lost day's wages. China, Song Dynasty, 11th to 12th C. Though tea culture flourished among scholars, peasants didn't enjoy tea ceremonies. Field laborers couldn't afford to pause. Taking a break risked losing crops, which meant hunger. The price? Public shaming, or fines. North Africa, Al-Andalus, 11th C. Sufi monks in the desert might sip camel milk or water, but comfort was not encouraged. Seeking pleasure in routine was seen as weakening the soul. Indulgence led to penance, fasting, prayer, or social isolation. Scandinavia, 12th, 13th C. In communal farming, breaks were structured, but if someone overstepped, they could be denied shelter for the night. The rules were clear. Work was life, and rest was earned, not assumed. Now imagine this. You, holding a cup of modern latte, teleport to this world. What happens if you step out for a break uninvited? In England, you're branded lazy. You're paid to labor, not to pause. In a trade guild, miss your pace and you're reported by peers. In a Chinese village, gossip could drive you from the field. Social trust? Gone. In a Sufi community, indulgence was a spiritual fault, penalty, fasting, or exile. In Nordic lands, slackers slept outside in winter. To a modern person, where breaks are a right and caffeine is a daily ritual, life without stimulation would feel like living without air. In the Middle Ages, to pause without permission was to jeopardize more than comfort. It meant risking your livelihood. In the modern world, evening means city lights, background Netflix, pizza, Spotify, a hot shower, maybe one more coffee, a personal ritual of comfort. In the Middle Ages, evening meant the literal end of the day. Darkness wasn't atmospheric, it was dangerous. Without electricity, your only light came from a candle or a hearth. Candles were expensive. People rationed them. In peasant homes, the fireplace was it. When it went out, night simply arrived. In France and Germany, peasants hurried home after sunset. Night roads were unsafe. Robbers, wild dogs, or evil spirits, which people genuinely believed in. Night travel? Only in emergencies. No evening strolls to clear your head. In Spain or Italy, cities closed their gates. If you didn't make it back in time, sleep outdoors. And don't expect a cozy cafe with Wi-Fi. The night didn't care. What did people do? Singing, praying, talking. In wealthier homes, lutes or reading, if they owned books. But no screens, no earbuds, just thoughts. Storytime might include tales of saints, martyrdoms, demons. Evening Netflix was grandma reading from the life of Saint Benedict by lantern light. In Japan, 14th to 16th C, samurai held evening tea ceremonies. But they were rituals of silence and austerity, not leisure. Peasants, they just went to bed with the sun. In the Arab world, Cairo, 14th C, the night market flickered on, but it wasn't relaxation. It was work. Selling, shouting, heat, dust. And if you're thinking, I'd just rid by candlelight. Remember, only nobles could afford that. The average peasant had no book, no candle, no glasses. Evening was the shutting down of motion, not its extension. It was silence, darkness, stillness, not satisfaction. And most of all, it was fatigue. So deep that your only wish was to fall asleep against a timber wall, where the cold crept in from below and drips fell from the roof above. In the 21st century, we expect immediacy. You order a latte, it arrives in 60 seconds. Hit play, you get the song. You want food, delivery, bonuses, push notifications. It feels normal. But in the Middle Ages, the concept of instant gratification simply didn't exist. It wasn't unattainable. It was a violation of the world's logic, a sign of weakness or even offense to the social order. In towns along major trade routes, Bruges, the Hanseatic ports, Constantinople, seasonal fairs were an explosion of color and sensation. Peasants, craftsmen, and traders arrived to experience wonder. Spices, silk, tools. But there was no coffee or cocoa. You'd get drunken warmth, mulled ale, herb infusions, and a lot of beer. Bread, rough, sour, dark. Pancakes with sour milk, dried olives. Fruits were seasonal and rare, priced like today's gold. Children were treated with honey or dried apples, but only on special days. Pleasure was a temporary privilege, not a habit. If you pulled out a modern chocolate bar or a to-go cappuccino, people wouldn't envy you. They'd question your sanity or your character. Why are you so soft? Why do you need so much? Because pleasure in this world was a slow reward. It came after hours of waiting, bartering, tolerating. If you couldn't wait, you didn't deserve it. And if you did, you paid in time, sweat, patience. A medieval craftsman, blacksmith, weaver, potter, had a tight cycle. Breakfast was functional, lunch was signaled by the church bell, dinner was brief and often after dark. There was no pleasure in snacking. The final product, a sword, a rug, a jar, might give some satisfaction. But the process? Rigid, disciplined, long. In Spain, some artisans would pause briefly for tertulia, small bites, and gossip. Not pleasure, a moment of collective endurance. In Japan, the tea ceremony could be part of a craftsman's life, but that was sacred, aesthetic, reserved for elite masters. Not a break, a ritual. Imagine you walking into a medieval workshop with a latte. At best, you're ridiculed. At worst, accused of arrogance. Coffee culture. Here, downtime was laziness. Children had it no easier. Honey was a symbol of joy and scarce. A child might taste it once a week, perhaps on a religious feast, or after fixing a broken tool by hand. In Mamluk Egypt, honey was given to children as a spiritual blessing, but only when they reached a deserving age. Now, a candy bar costs less than a loaf of bread. In the Middle Ages, honey was currency. Your child probably didn't deserve it. Neither did you. In Cairo, Damascus, Baghdad, tea was shared in the morning cool, but it was communal. It wasn't pleasure, it was cohesion. Sitting alone with tea meant you were idle or possibly boastful. In strict households, work first, sit later. If you were young, they'd say, "You drink like a lord, you work like a mouse." Even in India, where spices were abundant, tea was rare. Villagers drank hot water with ginger and cardamom for digestion, not delight. Spices were medicinal, not entertaining. And this brings us to the chemical disaster. You, dear listener, are addicted to caffeine, dopamine, alerts, color, speed. The medieval world offers none of that. No hormonal spikes, no mood boosts, no energy bars or biohacks. You don't just crave comfort. You are biologically wired for it, and without it, you crash. You don't feel understimulated. You feel empty. When you get coffee, you feel safe. You're paying for your mind to settle. In the Middle Ages, you earned pleasure. You didn't buy it. You deserved it, or you did not. Even cookies, yes, cookies, were baked slowly by hand and saved for feast days. In West Africa, Mali, Songhai, dates were sacred, a sign of hospitality, served only to important guests. You get 5 kinds of sugar in one snack and think you're underpaid. Instant gratification in the Middle Ages was either a crime or a miracle. And if you expected it daily, they'd call it a disease. You think, I could work 8 hours without coffee. Try brewing herbal infusion over a fire lit with wet wood. Then let's talk. Modern humans are resilient, but only within the tight bubble of modernity. Without caffeine Wi-Fi, or a cotton pillow, the elements that make you feel stable begin to vanish. And in their place, the raw, unfiltered weight of survival. Now imagine your body in the year 1320. You wake with cold, not an alarm. There's no thermostat. The chill creeps into your bones. Food is function, no flavor, no stimulation, just substance. Rest is silence and darkness. No screen, no podcast, no guided meditation. Society runs on survival, not balance. Breaks are luxuries. You don't own time, you serve it. Could a modern person rise in that world? Maybe, for a day. Then comes collapse, sleeplessness, irritability, emotional crash, anxiety, not from fear, but from the withdrawal of stimulation. You are not a medieval person. Your nerves are wired differently. Your time is sliced, hyper-connected, data-fed. The Middle Ages didn't ask if you were charged. They didn't care about your vibe. They demanded your body every hour of every day. Think about it. Each piece of modern tech is not just a tool. It's a chemical, emotional, neurological stabilizer. Remove it, and you don't just miss convenience. You lose orientation. Final thought. Your body is like a smartphone. It needs charging, updates, signals. In the 14th century, being online meant being exposed to hunger, danger, or the cold. You might survive the Middle Ages, but not comfortably, not mentally, and not because you're weak, but because your system wasn't built for a world without sugar, screens, or second chances. Thank you for spending this medieval day with us. If you made it to the end, then you're tougher than you think. Let us know in the comments. Could you survive even one day without coffee, a shower, or Wi-Fi? And where in the world are you listening from? Your feedback, your stories, and your locations inspire us to create even more deep, thoughtful, time-traveling episodes with a touch of dust, drama, and just enough humor. Subscribe, share, and we'll see you in the next century.